Hi and welcome to my video. I built my first gaming PC, so of course I made an obligatory trip to Micro Center for parts. The case that I bought for this build is the Phanteks Evolv X2. I thought it was just a really cool case. I love the see-through to the back panel that it has, and I liked the silver and white color scheme, which matches kind of the rest of my office. And then this is an overview of the rest of the parts that I chose, and I'm going to do a bit of an unboxing, so I'll talk through each one. The GPU that I chose is the AMD Radeon RX 7600, and if you have built a PC recently, you know that it's kind of hard to get a GPU right now, so I settled on this one after choosing like 4 or 5 other GPUs that I wanted, and they kept selling out. So this one, I saw it was available, I just ended up going for it, bought it on the same day. My CPU cooler is the Thermalright Peerless Assassin Mini. I was deciding between air cooler and liquid all-in-one, and I ended up going with this one. It's a good budget option. So far, the temps are pretty good, and I liked the all-white radiator look. My CPU is the AMD Ryzen 7 7700X. I got this as a bundle at Micro Center with this RAM, the Corsair Vengeance, and a motherboard, which I'll show later. And if you have a Micro Center near you, you should definitely look at their packages that they have, because I ended up saving a couple $100. The case fans that I got are also by Thermalright, and I think these ended up being like $5 and some change a piece. And I got 7 of them, so 3 for the top, 3 for the bottom, and then 1 for the back. The motherboard that I got is the Gigabyte B650 Aorus Elite AX Ice. Like I said, this was part of the bundle that I got with the CPU and RAM at Micro Center. The Wi-Fi board, super sleek. I really like the look of this motherboard, and again, the bundle was just a no-brainer because it was a couple $100 off. Being my first PC build, I definitely watched a lot of YouTube videos, both in the planning and preparation and during this build, so I'm going to put links to all of those in the description in case you're also building your first PC, because this is not a tutorial, but I found some really great resources, so I'll definitely link those below for you. So I got it all set up and working, which is awesome. I only ran into one problem, which was I had a boot failure. It turned on okay, but the first screen that popped up was a boot failure, and I fixed it by just taking the battery out to reset the CMOS. So left the battery out for like 5 minutes because the keyboard wasn't working, and that fixed it and took me right into the BIOS menu. So everything is working now. I have Windows set up, so I'm gonna put all the panels back on, close it up, and then do a little more configuration. But I am super happy that it seems to be working so far. It's looking good. Overall, it was pretty easy. I've never done a computer build before. The thing I had the biggest problem with was the fans, surprisingly. I have this fan hub in the back, and instead of daisy chaining them, I plugged them all into the fan hub. And then this case in particular also has some RGB, which I'll show here in a minute, but it has some built-in RGB, so I had that pin that I needed to figure out if I wanted it to go into the fan hub or just directly into the motherboard, and I ended up plugging it into the fan hub, and it seems like everything's working. So yeah, the fans shouldn't be the trickiest part about a PC build, but for me it was. So So now I'm ready to do the plastic peel off the glass, which apparently is the best part. I actually put the front glass on without realizing that there was plastic on the inside too. So I had to take those panels off and put them back on, and there's just one piece of plastic left to peel. So a couple of nitpicks that I have about this build, which are pretty minor, but one of them is this PCIe cable, and I'll show some close-up footage of it, but it's just kind of ugly. There's a second connector that I've tied to the main body of it because it has like an extra head, presumably for a more powerful graphics card. So I have it just like zip tied to itself here, which is kind of ugly. I don't mind this white braided part, but the extra header there is pretty ugly. And then some of you probably noticed, if PC building is a hobby of yours, I used really cheap fans for this build. So I used the Thermalright fans. They were like $5 something each, which is awesome. And the top ones that I have inserted the right way, honestly, fine. Doesn't bother me. These bottom ones that I have flipped, as you can see, like the cord there is kind of ugly. So I might try to tape that over. Honestly, I don't really care too much. Something that I do really like about this case is the built-in RGB. So there's a strip up here. There's a strip down there, and then over here there's a little piece in the case. I just think that looks really nice. It syncs up with the other RGB that you have. I am using the Signal RGB software. Works well. So the next step for me in this build is to actually take the front plate off and pull out the graphics card and install another SSD with Linux on it, because my plan is to do a dual booted system. I wanted to have the Windows build for gaming, and I want to install Linux so that I can learn the OS. And the reason I'm doing that is because I watched a lot of tutorials where it was suggested to only leave one SSD in at the same time when you're installing the OS, just because the boot can overwrite some of your system files. So it's a little more complex to do it this way, but I didn't want to risk messing with the Windows installation or the Linux installation, especially since computer building is a very new thing to me. I've never done this before, so we'll see. So far it's going well. I'm excited to get it totally complete. I wanted to set it all up and kind of just appreciate it for a little bit before I take it back apart, but honestly, it was pretty quick to do this first build, so I think I might just go for it and do the full setup. That way I can really relax and enjoy it and play some games. So I have success with the Linux installation. So now I am going to remove the bootable USB, reboot it just to make sure it works, and then I'm going to replace the Windows SSD and test out to make sure I can dual boot into both systems. So I'm now booted into Windows, which is great news. That means it worked. I did have to troubleshoot one thing, which is I saw that the Linux boot was working fine, but when I restarted and tried to get into the boot menu, it was just loading straight into Linux every time, even when I was doing a hard shutdown and power on instead of just restarting. So I tried the normal like delete, escape, F12, F2, nothing was working. So there was an option on the Linux boot menu for Wi-Fi settings, I think it's called. And that took me into the BIOS. So from there, I was able to change the boot order. So I saved, restarted, now I'm back in Windows. I did notice that the motherboard menu came up and the boot menu was an option when I was restarting, so I'm gonna now try to see if I can get into the boot menu when I'm restarting so that I have a better way of accessing Linux than going into the BIOS and changing the boot order, because that's not convenient. I don't want to do that. Nope. I don't think that it likes this keyboard. I've noticed that my function keys don't work as expected on this keyboard on my other computer. So I think that might be the issue. I unfortunately don't have another one to try other than a Apple Magic keyboard, so I guess I'm just gonna have to try to figure that out, but that's kind of a small issue. For now, I have both operating systems working. I have Windows here, and I can boot into my Linux, so that's great. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. As you can see here, we have a fully functional Windows PC. My Linux OS is working too. I do need to figure out that boot menu issue. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. I do think it's the keyboard because I noticed before that the function keys don't really work right. So I think that's probably the issue. Worst case scenario, I just have to change the boot order in BIOS, which is a little annoying, but I think that I can either figure it out by getting a new keyboard or try to come up with another workaround after I have some more time to play around with the PC. If you are doing something similar and you run into an issue, definitely leave me a comment. I will do my best to help you if it's something that I also had to troubleshoot during the build process. Luckily, it wasn't too tricky for me. I didn't really run into any big issues. But yeah, that was my whole build process, final product here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.